Welcome to the INSEVIS video tutorials. My name is Fabian, and today I will show you the OPC UA server and the configuration for the IoT devices from the series. The Edge HMIs and gateways from INSEVIS include a complete full OPC UA, so no downgraded microserver or anything like that. And how we configure this, what settings we can do, I'll show you now. In a previous video, we already explained that we need to create the connections and then we can fill them with data points. For these data points, we can set the one for OPC UA here. And then these data points will also show up here, data points in the OPC UA area. If we now look at the S7 data points under OPC UA, we see almost the same list at first glance. It is a bit different. It starts here, also with the connection. So the S7 connection, how the variable is called at the S7, and which address it has. These first three values are purely informative. And from here come the data type, the node ID, the type of the node ID, the browser name under which the node is displayed, what access rights, whether read-only or read and write. Is a history created? If so, how often is it sampled and for how long, i.e. how many samples? Theoretically, you can generate as much history data until the memory is full. As I said, this browser name reflects the name you want to use to find the node. That means you name it more specific, the better in the end. That of the node ID, whether string or numeric. Then we have the node ID here. And now, of course, here we have the accessor. Can we also set when the history turn on? And now we have here the data type. That is, we can now hear, for example, from an unsigned, they're also an integer, or also make a float. If we now need to change multiple files, we mark them here as before. That's also been said in the previous video before. Now we can select the file here, and we see we now have done a multi-edit here. These are all to unselect click now. Now when you have done all these settings, as always, bottom right save to device. You don't see that now. I'm sitting in front of it a little bit, and then you can create a backup as well. As always, under config system, backup and update, or here with export. I'm sitting in front of that as well. You can write a CSV fill and export it. After the data points, let's look at the application settings of OPC UA. The first thing we have here is the endpoint. Here we have the IP address with which the clients can communicate. That means if you are in a small network, this could be the address of your gateway or itself, or in a bigger network, this could be its router. You have to keep that in mind. The URL here below is then formed from the port number and this IP address. In addition to the host name, we also have the product name, device manufacturer, take here. These settings here are all to specify and brand the server in to here. Then we have the namespace tab here. Here the UADI as well as the S7 1500 are already installed and selected. You can also generate a user-defined name space and use it. You can find more information about this in a demo on the INSEVIS homepage in the download area. Now let's look from application to security. First of all, we are talking about encryption, either signed or signed and encrypted. Of course, it is also possible to take no encryption. However, this is only recommended in a test mode under laboratory conditions. If the whole thing is in productive operation, this should be avoided as far as possible, especially for connections to the internet. Next, we come to the server certificate. This can be downloaded and generated or regenerated. As he has made changes here, for example, you need to regenerate it and roll it out again. That works here using these buttons. And here at the bottom, we have the certificates that are sort of coming in. Everything that comes in is first stored under rejected. You can have a look at these certificates, have a look at the info about them, and in the given case, trust them with trust. Then they come in here. trusted certificates. How the whole thing can look now. Practically, we show you now. Using UA Expert, we will now have a look at the certificate handling, and afterwards we will have another look at how the data exchange works here. The starting requirement is we don't have any certificates that we trust, also nothing in our rejected folder yet. And now we get started by launching UA Expert. We want to directly add a new connection with a server. Double click on Custom Discovery. We enter our IP address and attack. Now the double click. We choose the encryption, basic 256 into sign and encrypt. Okay, there now it tells us directly, haha, bad certificate, we don't trust that. But we know, what are we now? The certificate was also just issued. Good. We trust the certificate and continue. Now we want to connect. How we get the message? Can't. Security check is missing. What is the reason for that? We go to our gateway again and reload the page. And there we see here under rejected is now our certificate from UA Expert. We can click on that. Then we get here again information about the certificate. We have taken SHA-256 with encryption and RSA so signed. Exactly what we want. That's what we did. We trust the certificate. Save the settings directly. Restart our OPC UA server. It's fast. After that is done, we can go back to Unified Automation, to our UA Expert. Now we can the server, start it up, connect. Already we're getting our connection here. So the connection is established. The topic with the certificates is now ticked off for the time being. To summarize, both parties must trust the certificate of the other party so that a connection can be established. Now let's look at the PLC here. PLC 1 under memory, we find our provided S7 data points. We'll use print in our demo. And the temperature, we now pull this into our data ACSS view, and now I will briefly split the image a little differently so that we can see the whole, can follow nicely clearly. So to have the whole thing clear now again, we have our UA Expert here on the left with our 2 data points that have been split. Also, we have marked here the 2 data points times. And in our web visa, we query these data points respectively. We can control them. So now if I control the pressure here, it automatically increases immediately. The same here. The same is true for the temperature, of course. Now we have set the rights here in our data points. For that means that can be read as well as written. This means that we can also change our values again here in the OPC UA. From this, we can now see that we are talking about programs can not only access and read the data. We can also control and regulate, intervene remotely, for example, for production monitoring or other. Here on this little page, we still have the server status. It's stopped. Just start it now. Just start it now. For a moment, immediately the status changes and we want the server to be always running in the future. So we set the check mark for start. If startup, then we can save the whole thing here. And we are done with this topic. So much for the OPC UA topic. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time at the INSEVIS video tutorials.